control so I get the rhythm, or
Yeah.
I'll want to
Yeah,
figure it out
I'll
here.
do a decent like finger picture.
Yeah,
So you
and
can get the
I know it's a slow song. I know Bob was singing it a while ago. He was.
I won't do it super slow.
No, no. That's good. I like that. Yeah.
Not too slow.
That's such a nice. No, it's just a perfect beat.
You know
I
I
love
don't. You know I don't like my things too slow.
it. Yeah, I
I
know.
often get accused of playing things too fast.
Well, like I said, I don't know why.
Good morning, St. Andrews. Welcome to worship here at St. Andrews. Welcome to you who are here and to those of you who are online. I'm Bob Settle, and along with Cecile, who will introduce herself in a minute, we are leading the worship this morning. There are some announcements. First, I'd like to give some thanks to those on the booth at the back. They're doing extra special this morning with some videos to show and so on along the way. Also to Dawn for setting up the display of the apology, which is in the hall, and I hope that most of you from time to time take a moment to read that apology that we made. Actually, there's 2 apologies on there. And Don's going to be drumming along with our singing this morning some, so we appreciate his support this morning. Also, thank you to those who are greeting this morning and to those who have made coffee for after church and for our gathering. So there are some announcements. Cecile.
I want to start with next Sunday. It's going to be a very special outing to Casey's Cabin on the Burman campus. And if you haven't been there before, there's a picture of the amphitheater. And for those with mobility issues, I really encourage you to drive up as close as you can to the cabin and park there so that you have direct access to the path that goes down to the amphitheater. And those of us who can walk better can park farther away. We're excited to have Michelle Walker with us. She is one of the co-founders of BC, or of Wild Church in BC. And it's developing the whole idea that so many people say that we experience God most and best in creation. And so we'll be taking time to pay attention to what we hear from God, from the trees and the birds and everything around us. And so I encourage those who we won't be seeing next week online to take that hour and to observe creation and think of us meeting at Casey's Cabin at the same time. And afterwards, we are having a potluck picnic lunch. Tilly's going to say something about that. And I just confirmed with Brenna today that there'll be games for any of the children and maybe children at heart after we've eaten or maybe before we've eaten, depends how that works. So we'll just have Tilly say something about the lunch.
Yeah, so I'm Tilly from Congregation Life, and Cecile asked us if we wouldn't host a potluck at the Casey's Cabin. So for those who haven't been there before, it is really quite a nice facility. So we will be having our potluck lunch inside the building. So, and of course we'll even go inside for the service if it's raining, but I think it's going to be nice, what I see. So, I took this picture the other day, and as you see, some of the benches are in the sun, so you might want to wear a sun hat because that might be a little bit too sunny for some people. So yeah, bring what you want. We'll make coffee. And do you have a question?
Just wanted to say there's a fridge, a stove, and an oven.
There's a fridge, a stove, and an oven.
Pardon?
There's a fridge, a stove, and an oven in the kitchen there.
Yeah, so bring what you want, and we'll see you there.
The other announcement I want to make is to encourage you to complete the response sheets that we have regarding all of our sabbatical services, and we're learning from those lots of things, and we're also picking up what you appreciate or struggle with. So I encourage you to find those in the pews or find them at the entrance. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Doug Maws. So our food grains harvest is set for this coming Saturday at noon at our field just west of Black Falls. Everyone's welcome to attend. Come and get some pizza, some donuts, watch the combines roll through the field to take off our yellow peas. So that's this coming Saturday at noon. And it's just west of Black Falls, but if you want more specific directions to the field, I'll be at fellowship time after the service, and on these sheets of paper, this bulletin I did in the spring, I've got the complete directions to the field. So again, everyone welcome for this Saturday. Thank you.
And as I sat there, I remembered that I forgot to say thank you to Nicole, who always gives us such wonderful music through this service. So thanks, Nicole. Our theme today is to do with the apologies that the United Church has made to First Nations because it's the 40th anniversary this month of the General Council that first made the apology in 1986. It happens that today is also the anniversary, the 150th anniversary of the first signing of Treaty 6 at Fort Carlton. So it's a significant day in this regard. I'm part of the service especially because I happened to be a commissioner at General Council in 1986, so I was part of the General Council that made that first apology. And Cecile is part of the service because after the second apology, she took on a task in the church. Do you want to say a bit about that?
So I was general council staff starting in 2005, and my title at that time was Liaison Minister for Residential Schools. And really my job description was helping the church to live out this 1986 and the 1998 apologies. And so that was my mandate. And I was present, and I'll say more about on the 25th anniversary and on the 30th anniversary in Sudbury.
So we move on to, there are no more announcements? Yeah. We'll move on to the land acknowledgement. In 1986, the Crown and First Nations, including Plains and Woods Cree, Assiniboine, Ojibwe, entered into Treaty 6 at Fort Carlton on August 23rd. Chief Kamiskowassit Beardy's campsite on August 28th, and Fort Pitt on September 9th. Other adhesions followed. Altogether, 17 First Nations in Alberta are party to Treaty 6. On this weekend, the 101st anniversary commemoration of the making of Treaty 6 is being held at Fort Carlton Provincial Park, the place where Treaty 6 document was first marked. The word marked is intentional. It's used because none of the First Nations chiefs actually signed their name. We affirm our commitment to respect and honor the spirit and intent of these covenants of peace and friendship, and uphold Indigenous rights as protected in the Canadian Constitution for as long as the sun shines, the grass grows, and the waters flow. Ovid Mercredi, on the occasion of the return of the Hudson's Bay Company Royal Charter in June 11th, 2026, said history cannot be changed, but the future can. The treaties remain living agreements. The honor of the Crown remains an unfinished promise, and reconciliation begins by understanding whose land this was, whose land it remains, and what responsibilities flow from that truth. Today, as settlers, we are repenting and relearning how to care respectfully for all our relations and be responsible members of Treaty 6. May learning the truth of our shared history be a step in reconciliation. We pray for the well-being of Montana First Nation and Ochese First Nation. Let these relationships reshape who we are and what we are capable of becoming. Jesus, the light of the world, promised the Holy Spirit as a helper to abide with us forever, guiding us into truth and transforming our fear into bold witness. We celebrate the spirit of peace that draws us together in loving community, following Jesus. 1 year ago, on August 8th, the United Church of Canada offered an apology to 2S and LGBTQIA+ people for the harm caused by our history of exclusion and homophobia. An apology, however, is not an ending. It is a commitment to transformation. Participating in Pride is one way we live into that commitment. We step beyond our sanctuary walls to bear witness to God's boundless love, to stand in solidarity with 2S and LGBTQIA+ communities, to proclaim the good news that every person is beloved, celebrated, and created in the image of God. Now, I would invite us all to take a moment to pass the peace to those who are around you. May the peace of God be with you.
And also with you.
May the peace of God. 60s and 70s, we as a church began to open up to the Indigenous people. When we went to Morley in 1973, now called Winisni, I learned that in the 60s, for Morley United Church, which had been active as a United Church since the beginning of the United Church and as a Methodist church since 1873, that the board of the church was made up of white men from Calgary rather than the Indigenous people. So by the time when I got there, Indigenous people were just starting to learn to speak for themselves. And they were beginning to speak for themselves, and so we hear from Alberta Billy now when she spoke to the United Church as a whole. Okay.
Three people out of all of Canada were selected to go to the highest court of the United Church. And at that time, there were no Native people involved in that hierarchy structure. And so I remember people looking at us like, how did you get here and who let you in the door? What are you doing here? We had a mission after our people gathered together, which we called the All Native Circle Conference. And we were there to bring concerns to the United Church from our people. And I remember talking with Stan and Thelma the night before we were to go in front of the session, that there was what they call their blue book with rules and regulations and resolutions and everything that corporate businesses have that tell us what their mission is for people. And there was a list that they promised to do for the Native people, and I said, have you done this, 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 this? No, 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 no. And so I remembered what my grandfather said. God has a purpose for you, but we don't know what it is yet. All of a sudden I remembered that I need to ask the United Church of Canada to apologize. I hadn't discussed this with Stan or Thelma. I merely told them that I would ask for an apology, and they were astonished, to say the least. I think if we had discussed it, it would not have happened. But because it was to happen, we let it go with that. And so that's what I did. And I remember the looks on the faces of people that were involved. The older people of the structure were very angry. How dare I ask them to apologize? The younger generation of people were very not only interested, they were willing to listen and maybe think they did have to apologize. And because they did that, other churches followed suit. And then the ball got rolling. Our people were very faithful people. We had a connection with the Creator and the land. But we were also people in pain. We were hurting. And when I worked with my cousin Bobby Joseph 30 or 40 years ago, we talked about what happened to our people in residential school. That's when I learned we are hurting people because we were hurt in residential school. And so, because the churches were involved, I thought they should take responsibility, as well as the government, for what they did to our children when they took them away from our families and put them in residential school. It broke the family circle. We were placed in a situation where we were to become like them, not as who we were as First Nations Indigenous people to the land. We were to give up our language, our culture, our dances, our songs, all of our ceremonies that kept us strong, healthy, happy people. We were to forsake those things and become what we call white people. And at an early age in my life, as a mother, I couldn't imagine anyone taking our children away from us. And I thought, we need to ask the churches and the government to recognize what they did and to act on the apology by helping us heal. Our people were looking at themselves and wanting to know what happened and if they could deal with the issues and the trauma that happened to them, they would become well, healthy, and happy again. And so the apology was, I learned the purpose. And I could feel my grandfather standing beside me when I asked for that apology, although he had gone to the other side years before. I realized that was my purpose.
Our reading from Scripture today comes from the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew 5, verses 23 to 26. And Jesus was speaking to his disciples and the crowd. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your sibling has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. This teaching emphasized for us the importance of reconciliation and resolving conflicts before offering spiritual gifts to God. Our relationships to others are essential to our spiritual in our spiritual practices and our spiritual relationship with God and our worship. Let us pray. Gracious God, You know us. You know who we are and how we live and how we act. So open our hearts so that we may see how we have hurt one another, so that we may see the hurts that other people bear, and that we may endeavor in what we do to overcome, relieve those pains and those hurts, and to restore relationships with others. Amen. I want us to play a little game now. So I need you to kind of, let yourself be free, open your imagination. And first I'd like you to think of a color that you really like, to have around you. Get that firmly in your mind, a color that you'd like. Now, I want you to imagine that we're in a church congregational meeting in a church that is not quite like this because the ceiling is kind of peeling and the paint's all coming apart. And we've received a gift to repaint the ceiling. So now the question is, what color are we going to repaint the ceiling? So what color would you like to repaint the ceiling, folk? White? Purple? Blue? Green? Gray? Orange? Now, before we actually paint the ceiling, we're going to have to decide which of all of those colors we're going to do. I kind of like a sky blue so that when we come in, we'd have, it'd be like we were under God's sky still. But anyways, whatever. So, anyone prepared to make a suggestion of which one we should use? Pardon? All of them. A rainbow. Well, I suppose. Any other suggestions? If we painted a rainbow, would that be great with everybody? No? Somebody wouldn't like that. Would you be able to live with it if we did it? Or, could you get along with it if we did that? Or would you object and leave and go to some other church? No? You like blue sky with blue, but stars come out at night, not in the daytime, but that's okay. Blue star with sky, with stars. So any others think or, pardon? Clouds with clouds. So really make a sky. So shall we begin to paint a sky with clouds and some stars beyond this? What do you think? You could live with that? Is there anybody who couldn't live with that? Okay, well, I guess we can go with that. Well, that's kind of how one goes about making consensus. And the thing about a consensus is that you want to make sure that everybody is okay with what you're doing. General Council, as General Council has done, has usually gone with, we will go with the majority opinion. That doesn't always work very well either. In 1986, when I was at General Council, there was another contentious issue that was going on, and that was about whether we should direct the committee that controlled the pension of the United Church to withdraw all investment from South Africa. That was a real question. And it was brought before, and there was some difficulty with it, and part of it is that there were those who said, well, legally, the pension committee cannot listen to even the General Council. It has a fiduciary responsibility to make the most money it can. That's its responsibility. So it went back and forth, and there was a motion came, and the motion was defeated. So there was another motion came, it was defeated. Another motion came, it was defeated. Finally, we got back to the first motion, and it just barely passed. So that was in the old style. But we had another issue we wanted to do something about, and that was to respond to Alberta Billy's request for an apology. And we set aside a whole evening to work on that. There's I think it was 300 commissioners at that General Council, maybe more, all in one big room. And Bob Smith, who was the moderator at the time, did not want us to go out with anybody feeling like they didn't want to make the apology that we made. So we worked at working on a consensus model. And it took time, and we went back and forth, but we actually kind of went through the wording. We had the wording up on the screen as we did it. So we were building it together, all of us, and kind of phrase by phrase. Well, can you live with this phrase? Is this okay? People made suggestions for changes, and so on. When we hear Bob Smith read that apology in a minute, you'll hear that apology that was written by 300-some people in one big room. We all did it together. But that was my experience. Now, there were some things that were kind of in people's minds. One of them I was aware of from before. I had been a General Council Commissioner back in 1977, too. And there was some issue about treaties that was there. I can't remember what the issue was, but I remember that I dared to get up, which is unusual, in a group of 500 or 300, 500 people. It was in Calgary. And I got up and said, we as a church had a huge responsibility because John McDougall, who was the Methodist missionary in that part of the country back in the 1870s, had convinced the Indigenous people to sign the treaties and that the government would be responsible for upholding the terms of the treaty. Therefore, the church had a responsibility to push the government to hold up to the terms of the treaty. Interestingly enough, I got people talking to me afterwards in private saying, do you think that, were you saying that John McDougall did something bad? Well, that wasn't my intention, but people were worried about our take on the missionaries, and that was true for the apology in 1986, and later the apology in 1998, where it was specifically about residential schools that had been run by many people, many of whom were good people with good intentions, and yet something very bad happened in the midst of all that. And were we criticizing all those people? How can we make an apology without criticizing those people? So that's part of the struggle for making an apology, but in the end, in 1986, we did work through that consensus model to work out that apology. So now you'll hear Bob Smith talk about it.
Long before my people journeyed to this land, your people were here. And you received from your elders an understanding of creation and of the mystery that surrounds us all, that was deep and rich and to be treasured. We did not hear you when you shared your vision. In our zeal to tell you the good news of Jesus Christ, we were closed to the value of your spirituality. We tried to make you be like us, and in doing so we helped to destroy the vision that had made you what you were. As a result, you and we are poorer, and the image of the Creator in us is twisted, blurred, and we are not what we are meant by God to be. We ask you to forgive us and to walk together with us in the Spirit of Christ, so that our peoples may be blessed and God's creation healed.
The apology made to the Native people of Canada by the United Church of Canada in Sudbury of August 1986 has been a very important step forward. We only ask of you to respect our sacred fire, the creation, and to live in peaceful coexistence with us. We recognize the hurts and feelings will continue amongst our people, but through partnership and walking hand in hand, the Indian spirit will eventually heal. Through our love, understanding, and sincerity, the brotherhood and sisterhood of unity, strength, and respect can be achieved. We appreciate the freedom for culture and religious expression.
I have waited my whole life to hear these words, not so much for myself as for my children and my grandchildren. Of course, I forgive you.
I've heard from many people how emotionally filled that whole time was. And Bernice Soto, who was one of the ministers at Carry the Kettle First Nation in Saskatchewan, talks about how much the Spirit was moving and present. And John Thompson talks about how many tears were shed. Tears of joy that it finally happened, and tears of sadness that it took so long, and that the harm done is so severe and ongoing. And in that spirit, we sing our next hymn, God Weeps.
Thank you.
that excerpt of Alberta Billy, remembering how she came to ask for the apology as part of a documentary that's called Truly and Humbly, that's put together by people at the Indigenous Center at Laurentian University in Sudbury, where the gathering happened. And it's all on YouTube, so I encourage you, if you'd like to follow up with the rest of the documentary, it's Bob Smith and many other of the elders at that time recalling that experience. Apology is about choosing a new path. As soon as that apology was delivered, Elder Art Solomon's voice came across that parking lot, and he said, "Now that you know, what the hell are you going to do about it?" So the words of the apology needed to be put into action. Art Solomon was also a stonemason. And it so happened that the 12 conference regions of the church at that time had each brought a stone to Sudbury. And it came to pass that those stones were incorporated into this cairn, right close to the spot where the apology had been delivered. Art intentionally left it unfinished, suggesting that when the church had clearly demonstrated acts of reconciliation and chose a new path of mutual respect, then more stones could be added. When I attended the National Aboriginal Spiritual Gathering held in Sudbury in 2005, it was my first day on the job. And several Indigenous communities had brought stones to add to the cairn. And to my knowledge, those were the first and only stones to be cemented in so far. Last Saturday, there was a gathering of about 200 people at this site again, and people had brought stones, so I don't know what's happening with them. Let me tell you about a few of the actions that have been taken since 1986 and recognized as steps towards reconciliation, and also that really lead to so much more of the work that is still to be done. Moderator Bob Smith and others often said, "We didn't know how much we didn't know." Our first and ongoing job is always about listening to Indigenous peoples and learning from them and finding out how much more we didn't know. There are two primary places that we actively listened: at abuse claim hearings and at the hearings hosted by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Close to 3,000 claims of physical, sexual, and psychological abuse in residential schools were made against the United Church. We did not know the abuse had been so widespread. As a church, we decided that we would prepare about 30 representatives, not lawyers, to attend those alternative dispute resolution hearings. We didn't go to the courtrooms. We had alternative hearings with adjudicators. And we decided that those representatives would be there to listen with our hearts and to offer apology for the hurt and pain experienced, if the claimant was okay with the church being present. And I was the one who arranged for the United Church representatives to be at those hearings all across the country. And that happened about 300 times. And every time, grace and healing were present. The United Church launched Living into Right Relations groups across the country in 2009, just as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was really getting underway. And those groups were to encourage as many church folk to attend TRC hearings as possible. If survivors were going to share their experiences, somebody needed to be there to hear them. And we were. I know that there were many United Church people at most hearings across the country, and certainly in Alberta. Sometimes they were the only white people there. From Slave Lake to Saddle Lake to Maskwacis, Red Deer, Calgary, and the final national event in Edmonton. Those survivor testimonies are archived with the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, and also testimonies made by staff, including myself. Those survivor testimonies that are housed at the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation are kind of spread throughout Winnipeg at the moment. And in June this year, the United Church gifted $500,000 to the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation towards building its new home in Winnipeg, as did the Anglican and Presbyterian churches. Most of those regional and local living interrelations groups are still finding ways to be good allies. We have also been supporters of Kairos, which has guided the development and use of the blanket exercise as a significant educational tool so that people can no longer say, "I didn't know." You heard Alberta Billy say in 1985 that Indigenous people were nowhere to be found in the hierarchy of the United Church. Since then, Indigenous ministries, of which there are some 50 congregations, outreach ministries, theological education centers, have been gaining representation and becoming self-determining. Their most recent national spiritual gathering was held in Ottawa in July this summer. And there they newly installed their own National Indigenous Council. And there are about 5 Indigenous staff at work at General Council office. In 2012, General Council passed a resolution encouraging the church at all governance levels to offer land acknowledgements at the opening of gatherings. And we continue to live into the understanding of who was here before settlers arrived and recognize our responsibilities as treaty members and sharing the land. In so many ways, we dishonored the richness of the gifts of Indigenous peoples, and we're close to the value of their spirituality, as it was spoken in the apology. 2 gifts that I want to lift up that I'm grateful for are the practice in meeting in circle, and for the understanding that all of creation is related and how deeply connected we are to the land. When we share in circle, speaking from the heart, everyone is included and heard. There is just a very different quality of gathering in circle than there is at a meeting where there's motions and resolutions and votes happening. When we respect Earth, and just notice how many things are in circles in creation. And when we respect all of our relations in creation, we can live in balance and harmony. We still need to keep listening, educating, doing anti-racist work, supporting healing initiatives, righting wrongs, responding to the 94 calls to action from the TRC. Only about 12 of them have actually been significant progress on them or even completed. Then there's 231 calls to justice from the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Public Inquiry. There's the calls to the church by Indigenous ministries. There is the sacred obligations outlined by the Special Interlocutor on Unmarked Burials and Missing Children. There is still so much to do to carry out our treaty responsibilities, to fund health care, referred to as the medicine chest in Treaty 6, education, clean water, to uphold the duty to consult, to seek free, prior, and informed consent, to honor the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. When Indigenous children are not vastly overrepresented in foster care and prison, or living in poverty and health and ill health, we may be able to say that right relationship and peace are being restored in this land. In a minute of silence, I invite you to imagine what action you might take to live out the apology that could be represented by adding a stone to the cairn. Now that you know, what will you do about it? Whatever your dream of reconciliation is, and your commitment to make it a reality here and now, let it be laid down as an offering. In 1994, the Healing Fund was established to provide grants to Indigenous communities to support healing initiatives for survivors of the residential school system and its ongoing intergenerational impacts. And your mission and service gifts that come in through offerings support the Healing Fund with $300,000 each year, and the Justice and Reconciliation Fund with $100,000 each year. An example of the projects funded in Alberta in 2024 was the powwow at Poundmakers Lodge Treatment Center in Edmonton, which is actually on the site of the Edmonton Residential School. And another project was called Healing in the Kitchen, which was done by the Fort McKay Métis Nation Association, which is near Fort McMurray. So we bring all that we are, financial gifts, but also our actions throughout the community and in our relationships. Let us sing together when we are living as our offering prayer. Good works yes, you can remain standing, because in this prayer, where I'm going to be suggesting that we turn in the four directions. Before the apology was offered in 1986, Jim Dumont, a leading Ojibwe elder, prayed. And I'm told that he prayed for nearly an hour. I'm not going to subject you to that, but just to think about how much we needed to be in touch with God to make these things happen. There are many gifts that come from each direction. The winds of the different directions remind us of these gifts and the seasons in our lives. So we're going to move to face those four directions when I suggest, honoring the wholeness of humanity and all our relations in creation. So let us turn to the east. Creator God, we come to you in the direction of the east, the direction of vision, of childhood, of springtime, of new beginnings. Grant us clear vision this day as we remember the children who went to Indian residential schools, and as we think of the 7 generations to come. Help us to see clearly the unfolding of your justice and the presence of your Spirit in the ordinary events of life. Help us to see you in all we meet this day, and to hear the many ways that you speak to us through others and the events of this day. Help us above all to receive your call to us today, and grant us the courage to respond to it fully. And let us turn to the south. Loving God, we come to you in the direction of the south, the direction of emotions, of youth, of summer, of growth. Help us to live our humanity more fully by being aware of our feelings, honoring and validating them, whether they are of love or hate, guilt or remorse, joy or anger, shame or contentment. Grant us the trust and courage to share them more freely and honestly with others as a way of building community and understanding among us. And we turn to the west. God of reconciliation, we come to you in the direction of the west, the direction of thought, of adulthood, of autumn, of maturity, of letting go of the burdens that weigh us down. Help us to think grateful and hopeful thoughts this day, to realize the potential that this day brings, to make good decisions, to perceive reality correctly. Grant us the courage to share our thoughts and insights with others to help build up your peace and friendship among us. And we turn to the north. God of wisdom, we come to you in the direction of the north, the direction of actions for survival, of the elders, of winter, of wisdom. Help us to be creative today, to share our wisdom with others, to act in constructive ways that will care for Mother Earth. Grant us the strength and courage to stand strong in solidarity, to walk together in a good way that will bring reconciliation where it is needed. And we look to the center. Good and gracious God, creator and loving higher power, we call upon the Spirit of Christ to walk with us so that all your peoples may be blessed and all your creation healed. This we ask of you through your Son, Jesus the Christ, our friend and fellow traveler, who taught us to pray as one family in the words that come from the Uniting Aboriginal and Islander Christian Congress of Australia. Great Spirit, creator of all, from the stars to all the earth, loved and respected be your name. May it happen that all should live in your way, following your purpose for all creation. Enable us to find what we need for today's journey. Forgive us when we go wrong, as we forgive those who wrong us. Have compassion on us when we are being tested. Do not abandon us to fear and evil. Our hope is in your new community. You are the one who can transform all creation, making everything new, now and for all eternity. Amen. Our last hymn was especially written for the 30th anniversary of the Apology. Curtis Tufts was a minister at the Spruce Grove United Church at the time when he wrote This Path We Walk. This path we walk through joy and tears, a living way of faith and fears. Through each step's rest, each sorrow's pain, and walked in love, we'll rise again. When life is shared together free, we'll grow to be all we can be. A circle wide will call us home. When wrapped in love, we're not alone. These gifts we bring, this light we hold, our songs of grace, our one point in the deliberations of General Council, and the elders were gathered around the fire waiting to and wondering what General Council would do. They asked themselves the question, what will we do if the apology is not given? And the answer from the elders was, we will still dance. And so I invite you to hear this benediction with that thought in your mind. Return now to the circle of life, knowing that the love of Creator God is with us. The compassion of Jesus inspires us. The hope of the Holy Spirit comforts us. May everyone we meet know of our praise of God's name by the singing and the dancing of our hands, heart, and feet. Let us sing now, Dance with the Spirit.